I love it. No, this is great, and I practice. So.
That's the main point, sir, and I'll continue the story.
So I think we could begin. So thank you so much for coming to yet another presentation in this series of When Robots Rule the World, 22-23 engagement series organized by UWSP. And today we're going to have a wonderful speaker. I'm really excited, Dr. Shour, who comes to us from Marshfield. Well, you also an assistant professor at the Department of Pediatrics at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine, right? And public health. And he's also a project scientist at Marshfield Clinic Research Institute Cancer Care and Research Center. I know Dr. Shour from Dr. Anatillo, who is one of experts in our Stevens Point cancer care. And I met several of caregivers through my parents who have troubles with their health. And it was the first time in my life when I had to translate because they don't speak English, and so I had to translate. When I saw our surgeons as modern-day heroes, because I don't know if you know, but when I was present at one of the catheterization or procedures, they wear full body armor to protect themselves from X-rays. And the technology they use, it just looks mind-blowing. So really, thank you guys for doing everything you do to save our lives and help us with our health. So, and you do a lot of research. So, just to name a few of Dr. Shour's projects, you study social determinants of health, as well as racial bias and intimate partner violence and how that affects maternal and child health outcomes. You also published several articles in very respectable journals on findings in social determinants on health outcomes in Milwaukee, as well as diabetes and infant mortality rates in the US. And of course, I am extremely happy to have you here today because your current research centers on AI and healthcare, as well as the cancer patients' perceptions of the impact of COVID-19 on tele-oncology. So thank you for all the work you're doing. And today your presentation is titled The Promise and Challenges of AI in Healthcare. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Let me see if I can use one of these AIs right here. Here we go. Okay. I'm very much humbled and very happy to be here. I do a lot of stuff, as you heard from the introduction, only because healthcare is super complex. The patient is not only a patient, it's a human being with a lot of different moving parts. Complex to a point where if we are going to achieve positive health outcomes, it's so important that we also focus outside of clinical walls. Because if someone is sick and they come to the doctor, and we can do what we can do, and at the end of the day, they have to go back to the same thing that led them to the doctor in the first place. So it's important not only to understand clinical outcomes, but also the social factors that lead to them. So that's why my research stems from a lot of stuff from social determinants of health. That alone accounts for 85% of how long and how well we live. Healthcare, access, and the quality of care that we receive accounts for 15%. So it's about time that we also refocus some resources on things that affect that 85% that we just talked about. So, I am originally from Sierra Leone, West Africa. This is a country just about 8 million people. Technology is there, you know, but not so advanced like we have them here at this time. But it's there, and things are working out pretty well. What I would like to share with you today, it's something I'm also learning about. We can see from the news a lot of things. Almost everybody knows about this topic. So bear with me, and I will engage you. I'll ask some questions. Feel free to join the conversation. This is just a formality. It's going to be more of a discussion back and forth between us. I have not stood in front of people for a long time. I used to be an assistant professor at Carroll University in Warwickshire before I was an assistant professor at the School of Medicine at UW. But most of my work involved research and data, using some of the very things we'll be talking about with regards to AI, especially in diseases and studying about data and using those algorithms to learn about certain patient outcomes and how we can design more effective treatments to address those issues. Okay? All right. I need to check my notes. Let me just come here. Okay. So full disclosure, I don't represent any interest whatsoever, no company. FYI, I won't be referring to any specific product online, and I'll definitely not be mentioning most of the things that you may know. So I'll just touch on things just generally, and then you can connect because you are following with the news and what is going on as well, okay? Okay, as an introduction, artificial intelligence, what does that mean? It's so prevalent in healthcare today. It's so prevalent in a lot of other fields, right? In marketing, for example, self-driving cars that we have today. But for the purposes of this conversation, we are just going to focus on healthcare. I know there are a lot of other series that are going to look at other sectors and how this technology itself, you know, affect those sectors. Now, when we say artificial intelligence, I will go to that definition, the concept, maybe a little bit of a background and history. Please come in. But in healthcare, it has mostly been used in the areas, mostly in 3 key areas. Diagnosis of certain disease symptoms, assisting medical doctors to do their work. Treatment, like designing treatment, personalized treatment plans. You must have heard of things like personalized medicine or precision medicine, for example, right? And then, yes, research, large amounts of data that I cannot just process alone. You need all these technologies to do this work, which at the end of the day is all geared towards, you know, one goal, to improve patient outcomes, okay? So my presentation is mostly going to focus on an overview of AI in medicine stroke healthcare. So I'll be using those words interchangeably. So not based on any technical definitions whatsoever. And we'll give some key examples on how they have been applied in the field of healthcare, okay? What are some of the challenges and opportunities? It's also very important to understand those. And then at the same time, what are some of the limitations in using this technology as it relates to the medical field, at least for this time, okay? Any questions? Feel free to jump in if you have any comments. I'll be talking a little bit faster, so stop me along the way and, you know, hey, I don't understand what you just said. Can you just repeat that? Okay? I learned that, yeah, that guy. I always put that guy on my slides. Yeah, he has some energy, like, yeah, we get this, right? But I also learned, I thought we will have some students in the audience. That's why I also put not just purpose, but learning objectives, that at the end of this presentation, something that you can take away. So one of the things I would like to just go briefly on is just the concept and a brief historical milestone of AI in medicine. That's the first thing that we'll look at. Second, we'll look at different applications of AI in medicine, okay? We'll look at some of the benefits and challenges, ethical and legal considerations about this technology. What does this all mean? Some basic examples in the field. And then perhaps most importantly, we'll look at some potential future developments in this field. I'll touch on briefly just as an overview on this. There's a lot of work already in this field. A lot of authors that have written in this area. So if they are listening to this video right now, they should bear with me because I'm just going to break this down into the very minimum basics, not going into any specific technological terms or anything. One of the challenges with scientists is that we don't communicate very well. We use terminologies that nobody understands, nobody cares, right? Concept. So what do you understand from AI? What comes to mind when you say AI? Let's talk.
Alexa.
Alexa. Yeah, I have Alexa. I talk to Alexa all the time. Can you play that music? That's a good one. Okay. Any other examples?
You mentioned self-driving cars.
You have one?
No.
Yeah, I don't have one. Those are too expensive for me right now. It's a good one. Okay. Oh, that one, huh? Yeah, that's the big guy in town these days. Okay. You guys are all. You see, I said, why am I even here? These guys know this stuff. Okay. Well, let's define it. What is it when we say AI? Just briefly, what does it really mean, right? And you can see from the things, I just underlined the main things. These are designed computer algorithms. And a lot of times software applications, right, that perform tasks that human beings are expected at least to do, or that we do actually, because we design those. So it's something that human beings do, perceptions of human beings, reasoning, decision making. The very work that you and I do on a daily basis, that's exactly a lot of the time what these AI technologies are designed to do. So if you have a device, or which type, whether it's Alexa or GPT, ChatGPT, OpenAI, all of these are designed towards this type of goals and objectives that human beings do have, right? When it comes to medicine, though, you are looking at something more specific, right? You are looking at large amounts of data is part of it, and then assist in diagnosis, and also what we just talked about before, personalized treatments. This is mostly where at least we have seen the majority of these technologies being applied. There's a lot more that it can actually do. This other one does not want to work for me. Okay. Some basic history. This PowerPoint here, this one violates every rule in PowerPoint, so bear with me. It's a terrible slide. So I picked some key historical milestones. Where did we at least have an idea of where we started, right? Sometimes I like to go into this just to understand where we are. So I don't know why everything started in Greece. But for some reason, we have Aristotle here, who is one of those people who have actually thrown some light into this particular conversation of AI, historically speaking. You have Aristotle, I cannot pronounce that name, but also you have a Chinese philosopher called Mozi. These are all mathematicians who have actually thought about the concept of AI and machine learning before. This is way in ancient times. So it's really not that new, right? It's been with human beings for a very, very long time. It just keeps evolving just like any other field, right? It's like balloons in the air. They are not new. They're just being used for a different purpose these days. So we shoot them out from the sky. We use a jet of billions of dollars. It's not new. Anyways, but when we say modern AI, then you are looking more around the mid-20th century. That's when we started having a lot of these applications that you guys were just talking about. In the 1950s, we have early AI systems, such as the logic theorist and GPS by this guy, Ellen Newell, and his own colleagues. These are part of the first AI technologies that laid the foundation for a lot of the things that we see today. Okay, these are applications that were designed to test mathematical theories, right, to prove the existence of certain theories. And there are a lot of them out there today, but this is where most of them gained their momentum from, right? The RAND Corporation is part of this type of development as well with regards to these technologies. Fast forward in 1960s, 1970s, there was some slower pace, mostly because of the limited computer power and storage capacity that we had, but still, the emergence of AI in medicine started showing up a little bit more in terms of diagnosis, at least in a limited capacity by assisting physicians in doing a little bit of task, okay? This is a big milestone in I think it's supposed to be 1971, but the first international AI conference, this was the first conference that we actually know of that laid the real foundation of this technology here. A lot of experts around the world were able to meet in Europe, in Scotland, University of Edinburgh. And they were able to lay the basics for the foundational research of this particular field. How can they really develop this field? How can they generate more funding for this field? This is one of those conferences that made a name, a big milestone there. In the 1980s, we are progressing faster enough. We started having things like neural networks and genetic algorithms. Speech recognition technology started emerging as a result of all these new technologies. So we are talking about real practical applications here. And then you have the integration of AI into our daily lives, right? Virtual assistants these days. Everything is like automated. And you have recommendation systems. Have you checked on Facebook, for example, and then you click one link, now they keep sending you that? Annoying, right, sometimes. I'm like, I don't need this. It was actually an accident that I touched it, but you did. So now they think you like it. Or you go to a hotel, and then all the music turns hip-hop, like in my case. I'm like, yeah, I like hip-hop, but not this time, not right now. I want to just focus. I'm here for business. But those things happen, right? Now, self-driving cars we're talking about these days with Tesla and all these automated systems running. Okay, I started evaluating my own rules. I didn't want to mention names, but it's hard. Advances in deep learning algorithms were further developed, especially in the, after 9/11, around 9/11 upwards, we started seeing more classic developments like explainable AI technologies, the ethics of AI, because it started more developing. And then you have quantum computing, which is way, way, way faster than the basic computers that we have, right? I was in IT school around 2007, 2008. At the time, I didn't have my bachelor's degree, but in Sierra Leone, where I come from, everybody likes to have a bachelor's degree for some reason. So I left the IT field for a long time and went to pursue my bachelor's because everybody thought I was a failure, you know? Yeah. Like, you don't have a degree, go for your degree. I was an IT hardware A+ at the time, so I could repair computers when they are broken. I don't know if I still remember those skills, but I learned a lot about computing and hardware A+ and things like that. At the time, I didn't even know it's called AI in some way. Almost every application you have in your, so basics, right? Computer 101. There are 3 components to a computer. We know them, right? What are they? That's a good one. Carries 95 or 90% of the workload in the computer. That's a good one. But let's go back a little. That's too advanced. That's very, very advanced. And the liveware, right? So you have the hard piece of the component. I can see and feel and touch it, like this guy right here. But this is like a car. There's nothing, if there's no driver, there's no driver. The software component is the driver of this hardware. So if you see the screen, the keyboard, everything you see has its own software application that drives it. Hardware in its own, you cannot interact with it. So you need to design an algorithm that is going to help drive that particular hardware. So a lot of the time, like before this time, we have very big, heavy computers, right? And you have to buy these drivers separately to install. Nowadays, they come installed, so you don't even notice that there is that piece to it. Well, anything you cannot see, anything you cannot touch physically is the software part of the computer. The liveware is you and I, the person, right? Without these 3 components, there's no computer. Maybe that will help a little. Don't be afraid. The jobs can't go away yet. The human being is so important in the puzzle. So I don't know, but yeah, but There's that piece there. So I don't know how the human being keep innovating with these technologies too. So plus minus will still be there regardless. That's my argument. We are part of the system. It's a big piece to it, right? Okay. Key applications. We have had a lot of them, right? They assist with various tasks. One of them is diagnosis. They will help identify symptoms, especially with patients with chronic underlying conditions, diseases that you've had at least more than 3 months. Cancer, diabetes, you name them, right? The other thing you could do is treatment, personalized treatment plans based on not, so let's go back a little. Certain drugs, when they do clinical trials, they are not necessarily tested on certain populations. So that's why when you take them, they produce certain side effects that we cannot even account for, okay? However, like Panadol, for example, is widely used around the world. Paracetamol, for example, these are widely used drugs around the world. Generic drugs, you can use them, regardless of culture, origin, or background. A lot of the time it will help with headaches and stuff like that, right? But I was not part of the trials when those drugs were developed. Now, medicine is shifting as well to accommodate more individualized ways of treatment, identifying your genetic profile and designing treatment plans that work for you. And that's very important, especially with the type of chronic diseases we are seeing. People are living longer these days as a result of medical, treatments and a lot of other factors. So it's important not only to live long, but also to have a good quality of life with that, right? Because those are two key variables in the MISC. This is my favorite part, research that drives the engine itself. I analyze data like almost every day using a lot of different computer algorithms. And one of the things I learned quickly is that they can compute way faster than I could ever imagine. And they can be more accurate too. Remember, we designed this. We put in all our intelligence into these machines to do things much faster and more efficient. They don't complain. They don't get tired at all. But you need the human being to operate it, right? So this is the part also where it helps with drug discoveries, for example. Things that I cannot see just by looking at the data. We produce a lot of data as human beings every day, starting from the wearable devices you guys have to monitor your blood pressure or your glucose levels. That data itself, of course, with your approval, it can be analyzed to learn more about how your activity, daily activity can impact your health outcomes and what can be done about it, just generally speaking. So I'll break right here. What are some benefits of AI? Before we go into the limitations, I wanted to pick your brains on that a little. We've talked a little bit about them. What do you guys think?
Well, I saw a report on CNN today about how an AI system could spot a potential tumor in a woman's breast like 4 years before it would actually manifest enough to be treated. So they're looking at old scans and it says
wow.
Test positive for kind of like a watch site. It wasn't a tumor at that point. It wasn't anything that was cancerous, but that was something that was identified. And then they took from later scans that it was indeed something that developed into breast cancer.
That's a great one. That's like early detection, right? And the earlier they detect diseases like cancer, the better, right? So yeah, that's a good benefit when it comes to diagnosis. Thank you for sharing that. That's actually a big one. Any other examples?
Well, probably better treatment plans, because if you put a lot of variables, sometimes you cannot understand how they're going to interact, but the machine supposedly should be able to do it because they have better processing power.
They do. They do. And yes, I agree they can identify patterns and trends, which it's probably a lot of the time not visible to the human eye. So that's a good thing. Computers, like the calculator, can calculate very fast things. But we made it do the calculations these days. These days you don't have to crack a chi-square analysis on the board. Can you imagine if you do a 3x3 table here with your hand, and by just putting it in a software and then 1 or 2 clicks, like in 3 to 5 minutes, are produced what you could have done in hours. Saves time, saves energy. But where can we really draw the line, right? It's the debate. Okay. Forgive me with all my fancy slides, whatnot. One of the things you mentioned was improved accuracy, right? And efficiency. And AI can, like also you mentioned issues around early detection, accurate diagnosis. That's one of actually the reasons why this technology can be very, very much useful, right? And you can see that's one of the things. And then let's move a little bit away from the clinical aspect and come to more of administrative aspects of things. A lot of days, we have a lot of assistants these days, robots doing a lot of work for people. They can streamline, administrate, they can organize things much, much efficient as well and better. That's the other thing. Sounds fearful, but it's true. We can do that these days. And you have issues around increased accessibility to your medical information, right? This is critical. These days, most of these phones that you buy these days have apps that come with them, right? Wherein you could record your health and medical data.
Yes, I was wondering, where are they using AI to help providers make more accurate diagnoses?
Can you repeat the question, please?
In what situations, or do you know of, where they're using AI to
Like
make more
examples?
accurate diagnoses?
We'll come to that.
Okay,
It's one of my slides.
all right.
You want to jump me, go there?
I do.
I know. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. That's a great question, by the way. But the next slides will show that. Okay. So issues around accessibility, it's key here. Access to your medical information, that you are able to engage. Because doctors, a lot of the time when you go to their offices, a lot of the time the conversation is one-sided. Because of their training, they have a lot of information about your condition or disease. But a lot of the time, if you also have access to your own medical information, you are actually the expert of your own condition. You can participate in more informed decisions towards your own treatment as well. Okay, so that's one benefit. I can't get tired of talking about the discoveries that these technologies can actually lead to. A lot of these now, we have neural networks where we just put millions of bytes of data, and at the end of the day, we can just analyze so much, but the rest can just be left with automated systems, and they could identify. You can take, I have a friend of mine actually who, what he does is to take articles of almost everything that has been studied on cancer treatment and put them into these systems and let the system predict what type of treatments are needed for certain type of cancers. I cannot read hundreds of thousands of articles that fast, right? But these computers could. And that's beneficial in a lot of ways. We have benefits, but also there are key issues here. Whilst these benefits are there, they're great, they come with limitations, and that needs to be factored in as well, right? A lot of the time, they are not really that accurate either, okay? Got to look out for that. This is where the human being comes in a lot of the time. They could recommend things that make absolutely no sense, okay? And this is where you come in and know that does not make sense. This is the piece that we keep, of course, they keep improving on. They have to be tested over and over again and validated in different spaces and time across different cultures and different ways of knowing for them to be effective, because a lot of the time these are scientists designing these. They have certain ways of thinking about the world that does not necessarily connect with a lot of people out there, okay? So whilst if you ask a question like ChatGPT, for example, it will give you answers. The more you prompt it, the better it becomes. So actually, the technology is driven by your own knowledge, experience, biases, everything, right? That's what it also, it's like GIGO, what we just talked about. GIGO, G-I-G-O, garbage in, garbage out, right? So it interacts, okay? The ethical and legal constraints that come with it. And this mostly relates to issues around privacy and confidentiality of data. Who owns your data? You, as the patient? I say yes, right? You think. So where do we draw those lines to? When you have, like COVID-19, taught us a lot of lessons with social media companies, you know. I don't want to go into that, that's a huge debate. But we know how, like Facebook, for example, with all the hearings in Congress with regards to data and how they use it for profit-making purposes, but then the patient gets nothing in return, or the person involved. That's not even medical data. That's mostly data of people in their everyday lives, and so on. But in medicine, it can lead to more catastrophic outcomes when your medical information can be used for or against you as well, whether you're applying for a job, for example. You don't want your employer to know everything, right? I don't, when it comes to my health. That's a privacy matter. But where do you draw the line and where technologies take it from? When we put this data, and a lot of the times there are actually measures in place, like the IRBs, HIPAA protection guidelines. We have those in place. Implementation of those can vary, but not all parts around the world are using that effectively, are actually implementing those guidelines the way they are supposed to. If we do, that would be great. But how you integrate these different systems towards the existing system that we already have has been one of the main challenges here. And then bias and discrimination. I won't talk about that because the next series is going to be on that. Right? So I'll just say bias and discrimination as it relates to this. Now, one of the things, we are making a lot of advancement in this field, but that's not enough. We are mostly concerned about how these advances are creating inequalities among different groups of people. If you have the means, you can access these technologies. And if you have higher means, you can access higher quality of these technologies, which means it's also another mechanism for the rich and poor divide, the social determinants here that we need to consider. Researchers have come up with two words to describe this. They call it the digital divide. You've heard of it, right? The digital divide. We have the Broadband Access Act that was passed recently by Congress, but still we have hundreds of thousands of, especially in rural communities, that do not have access to reliable internet. And here we are talking about telemedicine, teleoncology, and things like that. So those are huge considerations. Most of, if not all of these technologies do not work without internet. So, which means you also have to be trained to use the internet, considering our geriatric populations, considering mostly new generations might adapt because they are growing into it. But what do we do for the people who don't necessarily have the skill sets to operate these technologies for their own well-being as well? And even providers who you think have all the knowledge, which we don't, that are going to be trained in these type of new technologies, changing in patterns. It's not comfortable. Somebody has been doing something effectively, has been known for it for a long time. How do they integrate into? So one of the suggestions I normally have is create a hybrid model and harness the advantages of AI with that of the advantages of our existing systems and see how they come together, rather than trying to integrate one to the other, but create a bridge where they meet. Because if one is integrated into other, tendencies are one will control the other and limit potential opportunities. It's mostly a bridge. I just made that up. It's just my simple idea. I've talked about this a lot. The other thing is cyber security issues, cyber attacks. These days, countries don't go to war that much anymore, except with the one we see in Ukraine, which is so unfortunate with Russia. I don't know what they are doing. This is 21st century, you don't go to war anymore. A lot of the war is online. They just hack your systems and steal your information, steal money in your banks, take your medical information and use it against you. It's mostly cyber aggression that we are looking at these days, or cyber warfare. How do we protect our data, our innovations against this growing war that we've never seen? The more we advance in technologies, the more we're having these issues as well. Something to look out for. A kid will sit down behind his bed hacking your system. Computer geniuses can do that. That was just the legal component, ethically speaking. Compliance with HIPAA regulations. You guys are familiar with the HIPAA regulations, right? The Health Insurance, is it Accountability and Portability Act, right? This is the system we have in place that can actually protect patient data, tell us how we behave. Do I have time?
We have 20 minutes.
Okay, good. And how do we integrate AI into this system to make sure that, or do we need another law that bridges the two systems, right? But a lot of the trend has been, how do we get these laws to work within the AI sector, rather than thinking about ways we can develop new policies to integrate the two side by side. A system this powerful, a system like the healthcare system that powerful, a lot of the time will clash. So the idea may not necessarily be putting one to the other, but mostly creating a bridge between them. Just a thought. Bias algorithms, how do we deal with those? Like Google translations, for example, right? Into different cultures. This is the topic for the next series. I want you guys to be here, so I won't go into it at all right? And of course, we have to ensure the responsible use of AI technologies by the human being. I still haven't forgotten your question. We're going to get to your question. All right? Liability issues. When this type of technologies lead to harm, who do you hold accountable, right? Take, for example, we were just talking about the articles that were scientific medical journals. We are very furious these last weeks that authors, artificial intelligence authors, non-human authors were put on articles because they were used to generate, the content in these articles. Well, that's wrong, period, okay? One, for many reasons. You can't hold an AI technology, a robot, to account for anything. If I publish an article, if something goes wrong, if it leads to something good, I take credit. And if it leads to something bad, I should take credit for that as well. That's the problem with computers. They don't take credit for it. Are you going to put them in jail for anything? No. It's a machine. So this is why it's critical. We are not, you have to use the tool. It's like a tool you have to use. Give it reference when you use it. Say, we use this tool just like we use any other tool to do things, and reference it appropriately in your methodology sections as a scientist, but you don't really use it as a human being. This is why humans cannot be replaced. Okay? Intellectual property issues, the debate around data with patients. That's another legal consideration. Regulatory compliance with FDA regulations, plenty of them. And then you have, of course, the HIPAA that we just mentioned. Examples. See, I'm with you now, right? Like I said, but I won't go to specifics. Radiology, okay? I don't know, somebody was talking about from the beginning that looking at images, right? Different images. A lot of the time they use AI technologies to do that work these days. Somebody does not read these images. There are too many of them and complicated. A lot of the time AI systems are used to actually recommend what is going on and summarize that information for you pretty quickly, right? So analyzing medical images is one of the things. Drug discoveries is another one, like in clinical trials today. They cannot only help analyze large amounts of data, but they also predict the accuracy of these drugs and how effective they could be if we actually take them, and what the side effects are. All these are all automated technologies. So these are some couple examples, plenty of them out there, by the way. This is just few. And this is my favorite part, precision medicine. This is where we focus more on the individual with their history, their genetic information, their medical history, their environment, the social factors. How do they come together? So doctors, providers, I hate the word providers. It sounds too powerful. I don't know what to replace it with. But providers is not provide. They don't provide. They're not gods. Help me. How do we replace that word? The doctor. He's a doctor. Yeah. Yeah, provider. You think about that word a little. Provider. So it's a little bit too big for whatever, things that we don't know. Now, precision medicine is mostly the way that a lot of medicine is going these days, wherein the personalized treatments based on what you bring, not just what is available. That's a good thing. And AI technologies are very effective in doing that, plenty of them. But I won't name them. It will sound like I'm doing a marketing if I name them. That's why, which is a conflict of interest right there. Future developments of AI. It's a vast thing here. Predictive analytics. How many of us do predictive analytics? Yeah? Used one of those?
No, I haven't used it, no.
Yeah? It could help, you know, make things a little, you have a lot of things to do, you can just program it. So normally when I run data, I put it there at night, program everything, and then in the morning I come back, the task is done. It just runs algorithms automatically. But again, the human being is what you put in there that is going to come out. That's the power human beings still have, okay? That's another one. Robots with surgeries, imagine that. In fact, this is in the field now. They're using this a lot of the time, like you see that guy over there, right? They will assist during surgeries and making surgical outcomes more positive. Remember, anything you tell them to do is what they are doing. If you tell them the right thing, they will do the right thing. You can tell me the right thing, and I go and do something based on my perception, saying how I feel about the world. It's possible, right? With all the variables that I have going on. Population health management. So medicine is not only also about the patient alone, right? It's mostly about a number of patients, the population where you live, like COVID-19. Everything is connected these days. If someone all the way in Africa gets COVID, you are at risk right here. So understanding what leads to COVID in that part of the world might be beneficial in preventing the next outbreak. Okay? This is my favorite part. Okay, I'm done with everything. Now this is your turn. Now we're going to engage. Let's start. So I'm going to read out the question. Anyone who gets it right, I have a bottle of water, right? Okay, let's test what we've just, I designed this specifically for just to, you know, this is more like a lecture, right? Which is why I spent a little bit of time doing the talking. This is now your turn to lecture me on what we have talked about. Now, first question. What does AI stand for? If you know the answer, raise your hand. If you know the answer, raise your hand. The majority. That's all, okay. Okay, what does AI stand for? A? Really? Not D? A? Who agrees with A? We do? Okay, okay. Okay, yeah, okay. You see? You know how I did that? AI. Yeah, right? I programmed it, and now it's giving me A. Imagine if I programmed it to B. Everybody could have seen, you don't know what you're talking about anymore, right? Then you put in the wrong information, it gives you the wrong one. If I put B there, that will be B. And that's making life easier. Same with medicine. What you put in is what you get. So human beings, right? And if I didn't know the answer to that, I'll probably choose another one. And then everything will be wrong. Then we are all wrong. So in conclusion, the responsibility of AI technology is largely, mostly, if not all the time, is dependent on the intelligence of human beings. No question. So if they behave badly, it's probably because we make them behave that way. If they are biased, it's because we make them. Some machines, they are tools. Okay, second question. Which of the following is not an application of AI in medicine? The big word there is not. What's the answer? D. Everybody D? Ah, why am I even here? This guy got this right. Amazing. Okay, next. Do I have more time?
We could
Okay,
do this, or we could ask questions from the audience.
okay.
Oh, 7:14, that's too fast. Okay, so we have time.
We have time? Okay. Multiple choice. Okay, question number 3. What is the potential benefit of using AI in healthcare? C. Everybody? Yes. Huh, okay. It's like we gotta have a lot of water bottles in here. Okay, next question, 4. Which of the following is a challenge of using AI in healthcare? D. Everyone D? Ah, you look like you have a different opinion. That one, D? Yeah. Okay. Human intelligence is working right here. There we go. 5. Which of the following is an ethical consideration when using AI in medicine? B? Ah, yeah, that one, huh? Everyone B? Everybody different opinion? No? Yeah, that's correct. Next question. What is an example of AI in medicine for disease diagnosis? That was a little tricky. Keyword there is in disease diagnosis. Keyword there is diagnosis. Any suggestions? D? Everyone D? I think I choose D too. Yeah, okay, that's good. What is a potential future development of AI in healthcare? Ah, this one, we are divided here. C? Any other answers? Okay, let's see. Yeah, that's the outcome, right? At the end of the day. How does AI assist in drug development? I don't know why I put that in there, I just thought. D? Amazing. 9. Which of the following is not a potential benefit of using AI in healthcare? D? Yeah, I never talked about that one. Physician burnout, which is a serious issue. I wish we have, how do we do that? We could debate that a little, right? If you have robots these days, like we do have in Marshfield, some of the systems in the Marshfield Clinic, we have robots now that, that could actually deliver medications to patients. That helps a little, for someone to take a break a little. I hope they are paid, though, for taking that break. Because you can't pay robots, so you just buy them. That helps a little, right? Okay. What is an ethical consideration when using AI for patient monitoring? Who said B? Any other answers? Okay. How can AI be used to improve clinical decision making? How can AI be used to improve clinical decision making? A, identifying potential diagnosis, predicting treatment outcomes, analyzing medical records, all of the above. D? Okay, I think it's D too. Which of the following is not a challenge of using AI in healthcare? It's not a challenge. Who said D? D? Raise the hand right up. D, okay. See? It's a good one. Maybe in the future, we'll, you know. What is an example of AI in telemedicine? So A, you have chat box for symptom screening. That sounds pretty straightforward, right? And then you have wearable devices. That's personalized medicine, right? And then you have virtual reality for patient education. Sounds telemedicine to me. Maybe, which one? D? Who said D? Okay. Yeah, I'll go with D. I promise this will be the last one. What is a potential future development of AI in healthcare for disease diagnosis? Increased reliance on human physicians, greater diagnostic accuracy, decreased use of technology, higher healthcare costs. B? Okay, let's see. See, you guys got 100 over 100. Clap for yourselves. Ah, we did it. Okay, I think that's we all got it right. That's good. And these are potential readings if you want to learn more about all of what we discussed came from these. You could see like there were numbers in between those. Those are references, so we can use those to learn more. I want to thank you all for coming, for the invitation. I learned a lot from you guys. I'm happy that I shared the little I know about this topic. It's still in the age of, even for me, learning about all these new developments. And I'd like to thank the organizers as well. This has been a great opportunity to interact with folks and engage and learn. That's very important to me. And that guy. So thank you so much. I'll take questions. Thank you. And when you ask me questions, there's ChatGPT over there. It's crazy, right? That's all I have today.
Yeah. You mentioned like patents and industry-owned sort of technologies and so forth. And I wonder if that is going to be a problem going forward, because when you invent a system, like say Google or Microsoft or one of these invents a system, they're going to want to keep that proprietary. They're going to want to get all the financial benefit from that. And part of that is keeping it secret. But when you keep things secret, you keep them opaque and not transparent. And so I wonder if we're going to get technologies in both medicine and outside of medicine where it's so proprietary that we're not going to know essentially what's going on inside. It's already so complicated, and the industries have the interest of basically keeping it a trade secret so no one else can steal it and use patent their own version of it. And I wonder if that's going to be a problem. It's going to be hard. It's hard enough to know. I used to do neural networks when I was in my graduate program, and it was hard to know, even when it's transparent, precisely what was happening in any given node or any given thing. And then when you add that kind of secrecy on top of that and that proprietary nature, I wonder if that's going to make essentially a black box that you're not going to be able to really understand why it works, except the people that created it, and they have no interest in telling the populace. And then when it goes wrong, how will we know what went wrong, and how can we trust people, can we trust the people that run the system and so forth to essentially say this is why it went wrong, transparency, all that. That's what I worry about, because I think that we've seen in the past, even before AI got really complicated, that when people create new systems, they want to keep it to themselves, and these companies want to keep it to themselves, and I worry about that. You have comments from the medical perspective.
That's a legitimate concern, and I share that. That's a great deal, both legally and ethically speaking. Just generally, you might say, okay, it may not directly affect me if, for example, a marketing company or social media company does X, Y, and Z. But now we are talking about medicine, right? And to be honest, I don't have an answer to that right now. But this is one of the things that we need to have a debate on by, first of all, bringing these tech companies to the forum of both where you have people who are passionate with healthcare and those who are passionate with AI to come together and see where those lines are. That's a really dark box, like you put it. You talked about neural networks, right? Neural networks, you guys are familiar with the concept, right? It's mostly designed based on the human brain. That's at least the purpose of it. Different layers and interconnected layers, just so that if in case you want to ask it to reason for you, to give you a perception, it can, like a human being, right? That in itself mimicked. The patent right is already the human being by nature, right? But when someone comes up with an innovation like that, first they have to be recognized for it. Otherwise, we will also step on the blocks of innovation. We won't be innovating a lot if people don't take credit for those innovations. We gotta be careful by not interfering with those rights as well, but also in a way that complies with the existing systems, laws that we have in place. A general answer to a very strong question, to be honest. I have no answer to that, but that's like an area of more learning and development and having more discussions around this area, including both policymakers and these think tanks like Microsoft and others that have just invested billions of dollars, like in ChatGPT, for example.
You had mentioned the garbage in, garbage out, and what I'm thinking about is when we transferred systems, the last time we transferred systems, had to go back through 4 different computer programs to find the data. So for example, I'd love a personalized treatment plan for a patient, and the new system says patient due for pap smear or mammogram or colonoscopy. Well, they ain't, because you don't have the proper data. So the data hasn't been pulled in from the last system. And you want to talk about burnout and time consuming is trying to get the data from 4 different systems updated in the newest system you're looking at. That AI, I would call that AI, is like, oh, it's trying to help me. Say the patient needs this. It ain't helping me, you don't have the right data. You know, that's a huge limitation.
Yes, and 100%. And this was also collaborated with the CDC. So the CDC has large amounts of data. In the COVID-19, we had patients all over the country, of course, in different parts around the world, but in different data collection systems, surveillance systems that collect different types of data. Even how each particular row in that Excel or whatever format you're using, it's a code that is unique to a particular patient, in this case, just patient-level data, right? And a lot of the time, those codes don't match across different systems in these same AI platforms that we rely on. And they were highly criticized because even the new report that came out that they performed really, CDC is a great organization, no question about that. Love the CDC, we love them, but there's a lot of improvements also that the CDC needs to take, including recommendations for COVID, which was super confusing for everyone. I cannot read it. It's too academic and boring. Nobody understands it, okay? In a pandemic like that, it slows response a lot of the time, and we are not able to connect patients across different states, for example, in different geographies, because of the same issue you just identified. So I agree with you.
Speaking to this gentleman's comment, the expense of all this, you know, each one's proprietary. So Marshfield Clinics was proprietary, Athena was proprietary, Epic was proprietary. So the systems don't want to work together because each one, it's like you've got to put so much financial input into that. You know, I just think the money thing is going to be important as well, going towards AI. That's going to work well for the patient.
I do agree. And you know, when we say we as human beings bring everything into context, let's just go back a little. Let's forget about the AI for a while. As human beings, especially in societies like the Western societies, it's super private, right? A lot of people like to live as individuals, which means your own way of doing things, your private car, your private house. It's different from other societies. Academia, the way we are structured in academia, we're very compartmentalized, right? Sociology, history, some fields recognize more than others, medicine, law. That's not the problem, though. The problem is that these fields don't really communicate with each other. We don't talk. Mostly we do things in silos. So when we are hit by issues around the pandemic, now we are confused of what to do because COVID does not pick whether you are a surgeon or whether you are a patient. It's COVID. You're all going to be affected the same way. When you have bad weather conditions, climate change issues, heating, that's a problem. It's going to hit everyone, earthquakes, all these things. So it's about time that we start to develop more I don't like the word interdisciplinary because it suggests that we are using disciplines to talk. I'm talking about transdisciplinary, which includes people not in academia, the communities that are affected by these issues, to come on board. So AI, in its development, needs to consider these different interconnections, not just professional disciplines or the ones we just talked about with the professional fields, but also with communities that are going to be impacted in the long run.
But that brings the question of job security. So yes, you have to go through all the systems and so on. But ultimately, would the physicians be replaced by a very smart AI? You know, like the same with translators, what is happening right now, you're no longer just a translator because of Google Translate and so on. You are post-editing. So yes, of course, you are still utilized, but not as much as you were when you were a simple translator.
It's definitely, look at Uber, for example. In the 2000s, we never know what industry is going to be hit next. Now you have, instead of your taxi, you know how Uber works with all these taxi. Who knew that would happen, right? And we have similar technologies. It will definitely affect the job health sector, but also then, if it does, can we train people to catch up with these new skill sets, especially in the healthcare sector as well? Can we train physicians? Can we train the nurse to catch up with these new technologies? That's a whole new area of investment. And hiring AI people as well who have this knowledge to do this type of work. Maybe it could lead to both positive and some aspect negative outcomes. But it all depends on what we are going to do that will either de-escalate or escalate that issue.
I thought about your earlier point, and I was just teaching this in my class today because we're covering ethics. In research, the principal investigator has to be responsible for all ethical lapses. And I wonder if the same won't be true in the AI area, where we just need humans to be in charge of the AI to take responsibility. Because that was the thing you said, you can't send a computer to prison, you can't fire a computer, you can't do all these penalties. So what happens when a computer blows it, when someone dies or it makes a very, obvious mistake and the outcome is someone's dead. It seems to me that for the foreseeable future, you're still going to need to have someone in charge of the AI, someone responsible for keeping this and for being in charge, so that when things go wrong, the buck stops there. Actually goes to a person who cares about the consequences, whereas, of course, a computer at this point can't care about consequences in the way that you or I can.
Never had that.
Yeah, so I think that, for that reason alone, we need humans, as you said, that the live or the third part, to maintain the responsibility for the general outcomes of everything, so that it doesn't just get swept under the rug, oh, it's a computer mistake or something. Someone has to be responsible for this.
We have more time, right?
We actually...
I'm terrible with analog technologies.
It is 7:30.
7:33, so maybe we have 5 more minutes and then they're going to start telling us.
Maybe
Okay,
two more questions.
Yeah.
Just,
I'm
sorry, go ahead.
And then you next.
you're fine. I was going to change the subject. I was really paranoid.
but can you imagine a world in which we end up with a tiered health system where people who can't pay as much for healthcare end up just being treated by AI, essentially? Like, run through a series of questions, ChatGPT, health diagnosis, and you end up having to pay more for actually a human being who cares about you, like, holistically as a person. I mean, I just wondered what you did. Is that bad? Is that bad? Like, can you imagine that happening?
Kind of sounds like
It's
like ATMs. When
This is,
Oh, yeah.
that's a very important question. But to back that up, one of the most Googled questions during the pandemic, it's how to heal. How can I heal myself? So people have already been resorting to Dr. Google for answers, right? Right. Now, even professionals these days, if they want to check something quickly, everything does not stay up here. They go quickly and check things out. However, those things need to be very much monitored so that they don't produce what we call junk science, to a point where the human being, you do that, you go on Facebook, and then the next thing you see, how to cure COVID, maybe you should drink some cleaner or something, you know. So, and then you do that, that's going to result. Then you start suing the company for putting that information online, out of lawsuits. This is now where the human intelligence really kicks in. We just need to make sure we are able to monitor them, to do the right thing, so that we are not being harmed by. It's like education. You can use it for good and bad. It's like the knife in your kitchen. You can hurt it, you can use it to cook. It all depends how you use the technology that really counts at the end of the day. Don't use a knife to hurt anyone, by the way. Just a conversation. Yes, sir. Final question.
I just want to mention one thing. I get a cochlear implant here, and that's a baby step into what you're talking about, but it brings me back into the world and conversations and everything else, that wherever we're headed, all these little things like this, they make the world better for a lot of people.
I do agree. I do agree. And thank you for sharing that.
And everything that went along with the surgery.
I agree. You know, we wrote a book. When I say we, I mean a lot of people coming together, writing different chapters. One of the chapters, it's on neuroethics. It's on Amazon, you can look it up. But that's exactly what we're talking about. It's mostly, it can be used to help. But also we have very powerful people, some of the most richest people on the planet, suggesting that we should also implant chips to deal with issues around mental. Maybe in 2050, at some point, we'll focus on those technologies that will have no problem with mental health issues because of these technologies. But at this time, it's perhaps important that we factor in that ethical considerations, because who knows, if we implant something in your brain, we can tell you how to vote in the next election, because you know, it has a lot of other, whilst it works, but let it work for the good reason, so that it does not affect other things in a more negative way. That someone can control criminal behavior. Some people actually believe they can put a chip in our heads so that you don't behave as a criminal. Huh? Which means they can also put that in your head so they can control how you vote next time. So meaning the human being is now really being driven by technology. That's not what we are looking forward to, and that's why that book was published. Okay, guys, let me go now. Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much
My-
for coming, and please continue. We still have 2 more talks. We will be talking about bias and AI next time in April, and in May we'll have a panel discussion with everybody participating, kind of taking the questions from the audience. And is Armageddon coming? Are the robots here to take the world, or humanity will win? I hope humanity wins, but we'll discuss that, okay?
The Portage County Public Library will be closing in 20 minutes. Please begin bringing anything you'd like to check out to the ground floor. Thank you.